Alrighty, we're gonna do this very impromptu live stream, and I hope I can catch a few of you folks out there. We're gonna be talking about the new addition to my so-called drone fleet, if you will. As you may know, I concentrate mostly on unique products as well as Parrot. I have been flying the Parrot Bebops number 1 and Parrot's Bebop number 2, such as these here. And again, this is a wonderful drone. But, I wanted to share with you guys the newest acquisition. I got very lucky. We got a couple of people here. Drone Worship is here as well. Awesome. Dude, I wanted to show you what just came in. And, again, it's just a matter of, as you guys know, I do photo printing, I do photography. But guess what? It's not just drone flying for the fun of it, like FPV pilots do. And that's a lot of fun. I wish I had the nerve someday to get into that. And I'm going to learn from Dan, because Dan is getting into that as well as I speak. And just today he was modifying some, I forget the terminology. He took apart some batteries from the Solo, 3DR Solo 3, I believe. 3DR Solo. I'm a little discombobulated right now. 3DR Solo, and he took some of the internal circuitry, and he's going to prepare it so that you can use just regularly, across the counter, if you will, 4S batteries on it, because 3DR Solo batteries are pretty much gone. No one's going to make any new batteries. And the same thing holds true, as far as I know, for these types of drones, the Bebop series. This is not a Bebop battery. This is a third-party battery, and I do have about 3 more actual Parrot Bebop batteries that seem to take a good charge, and I haven't had any problems with them yet. But this and the Bebop one, and since we have Dan here with us, he's an expert on these family of drones. They only shoot maximum 1080p. And again, for most YouTube, that is more than sufficient. But you know what? I wanted to check to see what can we get without going over to the dark side. You know what I'm talking about. DJI. And still not spend a fortune and be able to attain really great quality video. And my main interest is videography. Not necessarily, I enjoy the flights. That's awesome. It's relaxing as hell. I get very easily stressed out. So I need to be able to go out and just literally sit on a stool or a chair and just fly my drone around. And I did that at Nathan's house, and I got a video that I just uploaded day before yesterday. I think it was. It probably was yesterday. Have a look at that. That's the Bebop 2. The last 2 videos that I did with the Bebop 2, I used a Sky Controller 2 on them as well for my flying, and I'm pretty pleased with the results. I hadn't had an opportunity to get out of my yard because, again, I live in a totally no-fly zone, just like Orlando, where we're going to be going this coming month. Forget it. There's no place to even bring a drone. Don't even bother. So here where I live, we're inside that very, very large no-fly circle around the Washington, D.C. area. So lucky for me, once I leave and I go north to my grandson's house, and he's got lots of land, I'm able to fly. It's a green zone over there. So no problem at all. Let's see who's here. We got Chris Tamulovich. And I haven't heard from you yet in my regular photo printing live streams, but I welcome you. I hope you guys are interested in this. Of course, Dan, Drone Worship and his dinghy. He has a wonderful channel, guys. If you guys don't know Drone Worship, make sure you hop on to YouTube, subscribe. He's got to hit that 10K subscriber list pretty soon. I'm hoping he does that, before summer's over. He's almost there. So we got to get him over that, hurdle. And right now, I'm just totally blessed that I hit 25K just the other day, and I just gained another 200 plus subscribers, which is great. And I'm a little worried about it, having these drone related videos. So I try to curtail them and keep them as at a fairly low rate, because I would like to nothing but to do that at this point, because I've just about covered everything there is to be covered about printing and photo printing and image production, that sort of thing. Because really, unlike drone technology, which is growing pretty much exponentially at this point, there ain't a damn thing new in the printing world. So even at the electronic shows, there was more about drones than there were about printers from Canon and Epson. So we're going to talk drones then. So let's see. What does Dan have to say? That's what my channel is about, keeping things cost effective and fun. Yeah, so he's doing, like I said, that battery modification. And again, Dan, you were talking stuff that I have no idea what you were talking about. So, you're the guy to go to. Dan is a real hobbyist. And the description of a hobbyist is not someone who just buys products or has products sent to him for review, if you get what I mean, and don't really know anything about the product. You just read like a robot, fly it, and then, come up with a positive review for it. No, he is able to tear things down. He's able to modify them. And that's the true mark of a hobbyist. Just like I do with my printers. I get into the workings of those printers, and I come up with ways to allow you, the user, to not have to spend a fortune dollar-wise on the original OEM inks, even though those are probably the best way to go. But I come up with methods for you to be able to reproduce your images as faithfully as you possibly can using third-party products. And again, I don't think anyone else out there is doing what I've been doing, and that's maybe why I've been relatively successful with the channel lately. Anyway, Dan, I don't know if you saw me without my hat on. Check it out. I wish I had your hair, but I haven't been blessed with that type of hair since before I retired from the Army in '39. So it began to fall way back then. They say that that's too much testosterone in the system, but I don't know. I think it's just because my dad went bald early as well. Let's see. We have Marcus Chai. Yeah, so if you guys are here for drones, please let us know right here. I got the expert here with us tonight, so again, that'll be a nice thing to have. I'm not using that other streaming software, or if I knew this was going to actually attract some people, I would have gone on the other one, which then would allow me to have Dan hop on. Maybe we can do something similar to this pretty soon, if this actually becomes, popular. Okay. Chris says, yes, however, I do watch the printing live streaming at my church hour time, figuratively speaking. Chris also says, we'll watch tomorrow, I hope. Yes, we'll be on tomorrow at 5. So anyway, this beauty right here, okay? You can see something really odd. I have a filter attachment in the front, the nose cone. And this protects the camera, which actually the lens protrudes out a bit more than it really should. And yeah, I keep these on just for safety reasons. If I fly in my backyard, who knows what will happen. I have nothing but trees around me and bushes and whatever, and a fence and all of that. So this keeps me from having maybe unwanted damage if I happen to hit something lightly even. So I also added these little leg extensions right here. This allows the bird to land a little more gracefully, which is not something that this bird does. They do drop from about 2 feet. I mean, literally, the power goes out and it just drops. So this gives it a little bit of a bouncy effect. The battery just snaps on. It's a very secure way to attach the battery. This is never going to fall off during flight, like could happen with the Bebop 1. or the so-called Bebop 3.0. So the camera gimbal, well, there is no gimbal. It's just a tilted 180-degree view, so-called fisheye camera, 12 megapixel, I believe it is. And so what it does, it just simply gives you a 1080p view of that 180-degree view that you would normally have with that fisheye. So because it's tilted down slightly, you can actually have it optically show you the very bottom, 90 degrees down, without anything moving. And in fact, if you were to have it set horizontally so that you get it lined up with the horizon, and while it's on and you're hand holding it and you flip it upside down, the image remains the same. I demonstrated that in a previous video not too long ago. Really amazing. I also demonstrated the gimbal travel using the Sky Controller 2. And even with this on, this doesn't really cut off too much when you go to the maximum up and the maximum down. So if you want to actually remove any possibility of any cropping taking place by this extra, the ring itself, then I would suggest you take this down if you're actually going to be shooting at the extreme travels of the optical gimbal. Now, 1080p, 30 frames per second, and the video is more than usable. It's not cinematic quality video. It's not going to be something that, Hollywood's going to want to use. Although you never know. I mean, I've seen some really outstanding results shot with just this very drone right here. And you can get these right now refurbished for like, I think I saw them as low as $194. That's including the controller, battery, and the whole system. These little doodads and an extra set of propellers. So it's probably the best buy you can get out there. I would not go out of my way to get any more Bebop ones because they seem to have problems with GPS lock. And Dan, if you're still here with me, I would like to discuss that. I know I mentioned that to you on an email that I sent you, but yeah. And it has to do, if you take the nose cone off and you expose the GPS module, there is no shielding of that module like there is with many other drones. And I think that has to do with the fact that maybe when they were designing this early version of the Bebop, they really didn't know. And so what you get sometimes is maybe possible interference from the battery cable, because unlike this one, the Bebop one hooks them with a flexible battery cable, and that seems to cause problems with GPS lock. Now, I have had to replace my GPS module on my Bebop once. I have 3 of those. So I've gone through maybe 6 supposedly refurbished or new GPS modules. And I did manage to get all 3 now to finally recognize or lock onto GPS to the point where it shows you green icon. And that means that you have sufficient satellites to be able to fly and perform functions that require GPS. Now let me put this away. And we will go ahead and show you the new edition. And here it is. And I got it for $540, brand new. And so I could not believe it. I got it from an individual seller. And I was like a little bit worried about this. But anyway, it turned out to be just fine. This is all it is. And it's just amazing. The remote control for the Bebop 2, the so-called Sky Controller 2, is larger. Oh boy, my voice is going already. It's larger. This is a smaller but much heavier unit. It powers on automatically when you lift the, let me get it right there. So it immediately powers on. Okay. The gimbals are very nicely, not super stiff, but you get a really good feel. I mean, you really do. And so Nothing much to worry about. You have your knob for increasing and lowering your exposure when you're shooting photographs or video. Gimbal. This is down, this is up. So there's no confusion, especially if you have a wheel type adjustment. And then here, photo. Here, video. But not to worry, because these drones begin to shoot video the minute they take off. So let's take a look at this baby. Look at how small the case is. And by the way, I'm going to show you the case that I'll be receiving probably by the end of the week, next week. And this is it right here. Look at that. I got the battery installed. Now it comes with a micro SD card reader and of course a USB cord. This uses a C connection for all your communication with the unit if you want to transfer video. It has one big negative, okay? And let me open this up so you can see how it opens up. Now I'm still studying the application, which is the FreeFlight Pro 6. But here's the gimbal. We'll just go ahead and power it on just for fun. Show you what it does. One little press right here. By the way, the battery, amazingly enough, is powered or charged. Look at that. Gimbal calibration. We are done. We are now ready to fly. We just take it outside. I've already calibrated it for my area. So you would simply just have to wait for GPS lock. And notice how the gimbal stays, the camera just stays basically locked to position. And again, this seems to run, let's just say, seems to fly a lot smoother than even the Bebop 2, which flies a lot smoother than the Bebop 1. So this thing is a winner. And if you really want to go one step higher, they got the Anafi thermal, which has a second camera built in for thermal type photography, which comes into play for, you know, first responders and that type of thing. It is about a $1,600 camera though. And I'm sure that there's going to be deals available once that becomes a little bit, well, you know, better known, if you will. Now, one thing that I want to show you guys, I'm going to go ahead and power it back off, is this. When you open this up, if you look at where the lens is, and let's put the propellers as far in front as they would possibly ever be. So right there. And if you were to draw a line, it's only about an inch in front, maybe an inch and a quarter in front of the lens. These propellers will never, ever enter your image as you're filming. Even if you're tilted that much, if you're just flying forward like a mad dog and the copter is tilted this way, that camera would never be able to see those propellers. You can't say that with DJI products, especially the smaller models. Okay? Yeah. So that is one positive. Now, another thing is that the gimbal can tilt all the way to the very top. You can actually fly, if you got the nerve, under a structure and be able to photograph directly under it. And of course, directly down. So again, one of those features that you just don't find in, I want to say no other drone, but maybe some other drones might have that. I just not, I'm not aware about any other flying machine like this that would have that. Now let's remove the battery. The battery is much smaller compared to the Bebop 2, okay? Let's see what kind of power we got here. I see a lot of Chinese characters, but again, not important. One thing that you must know is that this thing can power this drone for 25 minutes, easy, while shooting 4K video, by the way. Here's the big negative that I find, and Dan probably already knows about this, and this is something that a lot of people have discovered and had trouble with. instead of having a slot for your SD card, it just sits underneath this little metal hinge. You're supposed to slide it back and then lift it up very gently. In fact, use tweezers and remove that card if you ever have to replace the card. People that love to remove the card every single time to transfer video to their computer, don't do that. Don't even attempt to do that. Because if you have fat fingers, like a lot of people do, you will pop that hinge off. And good luck, because apparently it's not even available. So far I've heard, horror stories. So what I plan to do is simply this. The C connection back here, literally, you just plug it into the battery, which then connects to the drone, and then plug it into your computer. It will open up as a hard drive and just transfer the video files over. And then with your drone connected to your controller and phone, you can delete those files. Now, if you ever want to replace that card, which is only 16 gigabyte, and I say only kind of laughingly because, yeah, I shot like 5 minutes the other day and it used up like 4.5 gigs of memory. So yeah, you're not going to be able to maybe even do 25 minutes straight flight on that small card. You might have to replace it with, say, a 64 gigabyte card so that you have, especially if you get yourself another battery. The batteries are about $100, so that's what you need to do with this baby. Now, what I plan to do within the next few weeks is to scour all of the different shooting modes that are available. I was just amazed at the Free Flight Pro 6 application, because gosh, it has so many different things that the same application for the Bebop just don't offer at all. This has HDR video, okay? Which, if you know anything about HDR photography, you know that look. Basically what it does, it expands or magnifies, increases, if you will, the dynamic range of your video. So you're going to get detail in shadows that you never knew existed. You're going to detail in highlights that would normally be blown beyond that cliff. If you know anything about photo imaging, then you know what I'm talking about. So in photography, you have to basically shoot multiple exposures on a tripod, and then you have to blend those exposures together so that the exposure that you did to show off those shadows more, in other words, you're going to overexpose your shadows so you have lots of detail, and blow out the highlights, and then you have one that actually underexposes so your highlights are not blown out, and you have a series of in-between exposures. All of that is blended together. Well, this camera and the software can actually do it internally without, of course, multiple exposures. That's not happening. It's doing it electronically and optically. So pretty neat. And I'm not so sure I like the results, but I'll be doing both just to see what the differences are. So one thing that I've noticed, a lot smoother flying. I mean, you could do some really, really gentle cinematic flying of areas that you may want to, go ahead and shoot. Quiet as a church mouse. Okay. Notice these little propellers. They're thin. They are literally transparent. I mean, they really thought this out really well and produced something that is not only lightweight, but with enough weight to give you that stability. But I don't know. It's just quiet. It's like, are you sure? If you go up 20 meters, you just won't even hear it any longer. So a very unobtrusive type drone. It's not one of those screaming, sounds like a nest full of wasps like the Mavic Air does. Okay. That will attract the attention of people if you go to a park. This will not. Okay. This will kind of disappear. It's up there, but nobody will know it's up there unless they look, because it's just so quiet. So again, the features that this has, for me, they're blowing my mind right now, because I never expected that. Okay. So now what I'm doing is, of course, educating myself like I do with everything else that I get. And I rely on other people like Dan, like, like Drone Worship Channel. Okay. I watch people that maybe Dan doesn't even like much, but I do watch everybody, and I try to get bits and pieces of information that I say, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. If I think the guy is just nothing but BS, then he's off. That's it. And that's the way to learn. It's not all about just reading. Okay. It's about studying other people's work, especially those that you have trust in. So let's see if we have anything else being asked here. Chris says, don't count yourself out of Hollywood movies. Look what happened to the Blair Witch Project movie. Yes, that's one good example. One good example. Whereas, you don't need like ultra high quality video. Let me show you what my next accessory will be. Let me go to the screen display. And this is going to be coming tomorrow. Not tomorrow, at the end of midweek next week. Sorry about that. So again, it's just a little case, like with a strap for over the shoulder, and I'll show you some of the views. This thing is under $30, folks. And it is molded. It's a molded case, because the others that come from China basically are the type where it's just a slab of styrofoam. Look at that. See that? That's molded, and it fits perfectly. What they give you is a slab of styrofoam, and you have to then remove the little pieces to kind of make it fit, That's what this one is like. And this one is the same, but this one comes from China. There was one here. Here we go. This is not the one that you should get. Look at this thing. You see that? No, that is really cheap. Okay. The one that I'm getting is molded, and so it's specifically made for it, which is the only way you should go. Getting a set of filters as well, some Freewell filters, which is really good quality filters. And this is what the batteries go for. So you get that little case. You're going to have room for one more battery, maybe two if you leave one connected to the drone. I usually don't want to do that. I want to keep my batteries disconnected until I need to fly. All sorts of chargers here for it. Of course, it basically uses USB charging. So I may come up, if I do end up with 3, I may end up and, buy one of these multi-port chargers. But simply put, it's still using USB. And I don't understand how that works, because I thought you needed to balance charge these batteries. Now, they do take quite a bit to charge. And basically what you're going to get is a progression bar type thing on your battery itself. So let's remove this battery a second here. So, it's a smart battery. So you're going to get the indicators right here. 4 little indicators. So when it's charging, it's just going to show you the gradual increase in the charge. And then when it reaches full charge, all the lights go out. So it takes quite a while. It's not a fast process. So I'm thinking if I go through the process of acquiring 2 more batteries, and I'm going to have to make some money on YouTube to be able to finance that, because that cannot come from the house money. So we'll go ahead and use one of these types of chargers then to be able to just pop all 3 batteries at once and then go off on a trip and have enough power. Of course, I'll be taking that with me, but again, that type of setup, 3 batteries, that is 75 minutes of flying. That's 75 minutes of 4K quality, 30 frames per second video, which is, it just eats up memory cards. Okay, so you would need some device, maybe a portable drive that you can transfer your footage to before you get home. So Art of Women Photography is here. Taking my Phantom 4 Pro out today for a couple of flights. Haven't had a chance to get it out for a couple of months, due to the time taken with the photo shoots. Yeah, you're a busy guy. So again, I know that that's how you relax, just the way I do. I enjoy flying. It's just a pleasure for me. If it wasn't dark right now, I would be out. Today it rained all day long, from morning until like late afternoon. So again, obviously flying was out of the question. Tomorrow we're going to be going to Nathan's house. We're going to visit Jeremy, our son, and I think Judy and Brian are going to be at the school doing. They have to perform hours. Catholic school is that way, and so they're going to be cleaning some areas and earning their volunteer hours, if you will. And so we're going to be making, gosh, let's see, I think it was close to, I want to say 10 pounds of ground beef, which we're going to turn into the best sloppy Joe mix you've ever had. And then we're going to take that over to a local women's shelter on Saturday, the following Saturday. So we're going to freeze it. We're going to sample it, of course. We're going to freeze it, and then my wife's women's group is going to take that over to the center, and then they're going to feed 40 plus women with the delicious, I mean, they remember from the last time, sloppy joes that my son makes. Yeah, so we picked up all the ingredients today at our military commissary. Third Eye View says you should get a Type-C charger and Type-C cable out, down your charging time by an hour. Yes, I think so. I'm still learning how to correctly charge these batteries. I really do not want to mess up $100 batteries. So Cal Johnson says, yeah, 4K, yay, cool. All right, yes, it is. Third Eye View says, Anchor makes one for $29.99. I'm going to be looking at various, and he said on Amazon, I'm going to look at various sources for this. Again, right now I just got to save money for a couple of new batteries, and I'm going to order the filter set, which I believe, let me show you what that looks like. Let's see, I think I'm on eBay. Let's go over to Amazon a minute. And I have it on a on my cart right now. So let's go ahead and switch over. All right, and this is it. So this is what we're getting, and it'll have neutral density filters all the way to ND32 and ND64 polarizer. And the reason you might need that is any of you who are experienced aerial videographers, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and close this. You need to have a way to control your shutter speed. So if you really want super cinematic look, you need to shoot at approximately twice the frame rate. So if you have a frame rate of 30, then you got to have your shutter to 1/60th of a second. And even though you might drop your ISO down to 100, okay, which will give you the best results as far as any kind of digital noise from the sensor, you will end up with like a 1/2000th of a second shutter speed. That will give you that jittery look when you're doing a yaw. You don't have any motion blur in individual frames. So you need to cut down the amount of light entering the sensor through the lens. So that's where these so-called neutral density filters come into play. And that does the job. You just pop whatever filter you need to allow you to bring down that shutter speed to about twice the frame rate. So if you're shooting 1080p 60, then you can up your shutter speed to 125 or whatever. So something close to, that would be twice the frame rate. Again, with my Typhoon, my unique Typhoon Q500 4K, I can shoot 1080p at like 120 frames per second. So I could set that shutter speed higher, in other words, to twice that. And that will still give me that really smooth look. Also, another reason for jittery, jumpy video when you're yawing is that your memory card can't handle the data transfer. Okay, it just simply can't. It's writing as fast as it can. The information it's receiving I don't know whether these systems use a buffering system, or data, but again, you just can't handle it. So you get that jitter. And if it's a certain type of jitter, it's not your rhythmic jittery frame that frame rate that you get when you're yawing, or even flying sideways, or flying forward for that matter. You're going to get that and it's due to the fact that each frame is being exposed and without any motion blur. So you're going to get that jittery look. So motion blur is what does everything. And I know that it sounds, in photography, you don't want motion blur unless you're specifically shooting something like moving water or an ocean, waves crashing, and all you have is a blur with the sharp rocks, So yeah, so many different things. By the way, this thing has flying functions that I have never heard before, like cameraman. And I think maybe some of the DJI products may have that. But again, we're talking about $550 that I paid for, no, $540. It sells for like $7 something brand new for the kit. And so I did get it at a good price. Refurbs are going for like maybe $450, $500 on Amazon, but you really don't know. The only thing good about Amazon, you can return it, especially if it's something sponsored by them. So anyway, cameraman is intriguing. Once you set your point of interest and you adjust the camera the way you want it, you can literally then say this is your point of interest. You can literally fly. You start here with the cameras aimed straight at it. And again, this is not an optical gimbal like the Bebop 2s and 1s. This is mechanical. So as you fly over, and maybe you're going to do like a flyover like this, the camera will adjust its angle automatically, always pointing at that object, okay, which is kind of neat. I mean, that's difficult to do by hand, especially if you're going to do forward, yaw at the same time simultaneously, and also adjust your camera gimbal. That can be a little bit demanding. I know I'm not good enough to do that yet. So that is something that, again, is going to come into play for certain types of shots. It has precision landing. How good is it? I have no idea. When I took off the other day, it said that precision marked the home point. So, you know what? If it comes within 3 feet of my landing pad, or even 2 feet, I know DJI can land right smack on it. Not all the time. But if it comes within 2 or 3 feet from where I took off from, and often I will take off from a smooth, say gravelly area, or very low cut grass. I don't want to chop grass with my propellers, of course. I don't care if it lands within 2 or 3 or even 4 feet from my takeoff point. That's close enough for me. I will always take off from an area that is wide open. So it can come down and be off several feet. What do I care? As long as it comes home to me, right? So many things that I'm going to be exploring. And again, I'm just reading and watching videos and learning as much as I possibly can. And let me show you really, really quick here the website. I looked up information on it today, and I really wanted to know, okay, what's really available out there concerning this. And of course, it took me to parrot.com, which is not necessarily what I wanted to do, but I'm going to explore other, third-party reviewers, not videos. I just want to look at something written. So as you can see, $700. That's the manufacturer price. You can buy it at Best Buy, support it at Best Buy 2 days. So you can immediately go there and get anything pertaining to this particular drone. 180-degree gimbal travel, okay? You cannot beat that, okay? You cannot beat that. I did a sample. I was just holding it with my hand, and I literally was looking at the stormy clouds upstairs in the sky without me having to tilt it up. And of course, it wouldn't have mattered if I tilted it up because the gimbal would have stayed horizontal anyway. So by having a mechanical gimbal that can actually be tilted up, imagine you could go between rows of trees, okay? And these rows that maybe in the south that have these old growth oak trees, like what do they call that? Live oaks, okay? And it forms like a canopy. Can you imagine flying down that road, tilting the gimbal all the way up, at least doing like a reveal that way? You start horizontal or even slightly down, you drive down that road or fly down that road, and then you slowly tilt the gimbal up, and you get that incredible view of the tree canopy above it, okay? That is a possibility that's easy to do with this drone. And I don't know how else you would do that with anything else. So you got this feature, of course, and it just kind of brags. I said, don't just take our word for it. And then it gets into all of the different, we're calling Snap Spectacular 4K HDR videos and 21 megapixel photos. Now, the Bebop 2, Bebop 1, if you want to take advantage of the 12 megapixels that the sensor boasts, then you have to shoot in so-called DNG format, and basically you get that round fisheye view, okay? And there's software that you can use to, crop out a rectangular section out of the middle, but you lose resolution that way. Or you can actually convert that circle, that round image, into some sort of semi-vertical rectangular image, but it still has all kinds of curvature problems, especially on angular lines. This has a rectilinear option. You can actually shoot in two modes, in RAW as well as a JPEG rectilinear, and immediately get a converted, completely corrected image, which is amazing to me. And again, these are examples of some of the images that have been taken. And this is what I'm talking about. Imagine being able to shoot something like this, where you're literally flying under a structure, okay, and being able to just, as long as you got a good, field of view, meaning, what do they call that? Direct eye contact with the drone. You can fly, tilt that thing up, and see it on your phone, okay, or your tablet, whatever device you're using for your first-person view. Film smooth videos using the 3-axis image stabilization. So, unlike the Bebop, which produces really good visual stabilization, it has one problem. And I'm not going to give you actual video examples today, but we can discuss that at a later, broadcast. If this takes off, I'll be able to do these maybe every Friday. Let's tilt the monitor down a little bit. So here's what happens. Because remember, the drone is moving, okay? So literally your image should be also moving, but what it's finding is areas where it can lock onto, especially if you're just flying straight. It will lock onto what it believes is a 1920 by 1080 rectangle, 16 by 9, and it will lock onto that. When you begin to yaw, even if you're doing it slowly, it will kind of begin abruptly. And then when you stop yawing, it stops abruptly, okay? Not so with this, because it's got an actual mechanical gimbal. So your straight flights, and when you go into a curve, let's just use a layman's term, a yaw to the right, it is butter smooth, okay? Butter smooth. Right now I have the piloting settings set to minimum everything. So that's for me to get used to the controller and get used to the way that this drone, flies. But I don't think I'll have any problems. I think this thing is solid as a rock. Hovers right smack where you took off from. The only thing that I have not been able to figure out is to have it take off and hover at a slightly higher altitude. Right now, it only seems to hover around 1 meter, and I've been looking to see if I could have an adjustment that I can, change to have it rise up a little bit higher than 1 meter. Minor thing. It's really nothing to worry about too much. So, again, exposure controls. I don't think it has aperture controls, so that's the only thing lacking. So you have ISO control, you have shutter speed control, and of course, all of the different color temperatures that you can set to. And what I'm going to do, the last video that I shot, and I'll have that up tomorrow, I did it with auto, just everything auto. And of course, as you go from a dark area to a light area, you get that transition where the exposure changes to compensate for a dark area. If you have a bit of bright sky and some, dark trees in your foreground, it's going to favor that dark sky, that light sky, and it's going to darken your trees. So unless you're doing a type of shot where you're just not going to be moving from that area, then you can manually adjust that exposure to take into effect, if your dark trees are the center of interest, then you can adjust the exposure to, display that a little bit better. But if you're moving, then it's going to change. So of course you can lock that so that it doesn't change. So your exposure does not change as your lighting conditions change. Well, do you really want to do that? I mean, in some cases, yes, in some cases, no. So it depends on the situation. Let's go ahead really quick because we've been here for, gosh, we started at 7:30, so that's not bad. We're about 8:16 right now. Let's see if there's anything else here that we can look at. Then I'm going to show you a real quick video that's going to be going up tomorrow, but I'm just going to give you a quick little preview of it. Oh, by the way, oh gosh, yes, this has 2.8 lossless zoom, okay? That's optical. And so that means that you will be able to hover over someone like you can here, and without lowering your drone, just zoom into them slowly. You can adjust that rate as well. Now, depending on your shooting resolution video-wise, the amount of zoom will change. Of course, you can also switch over to lossy zoom, which is more digital zoom, and gain a lot more X power, but that will degrade your image quite a bit. So you may not want to do that. Comes in that little case that I show you, which is awesome. And again, it's very fashionable. It says here, design with passion in Paris. You have a hand launch, which is automatic type launching. It has a feature built into the controller app. And again, just like the earlier bebops or even some of the DJI, just hold it, launch, it will spin the props, and you just give it a little nudge and it will take off from your hands. But landing it in your hand, well, I don't know. But because one thing that I was thinking, guys, is this. You could literally grab it from underneath. These propellers will never hit you. And you can bring it down to a certain height, let her hover, grab it, just tilt it over, and it will turn off. And that's one way to land if you don't want to land on wet grass, or, say you change location from where you took off and you don't really want to land it right there where it is. Maybe there's a puddle of water, whatever the case may be. You can just grab it very safely and then turn it upside down or sideways. It'll just stop the props immediately. So much to learn. So much to learn. All of the follow me modes that you've ever heard of are included. Included some really, really, really good waypoint programming, okay? Some of the best I've seen, where you can program literally everything, including gradual changes on the gimbal angle as you fly from one point to the next point of interest. All of that stuff is included. And you can charge the Anafi on the go with a USB-C charging system, which I'm going to look into as well. And I think that is it. Let's see what else they have here to entice us with. I think that is it. All right. So again, I am not going to be doing any of this stuff here. I'm going to be doing fully controlled by me type videos. So, nothing to do with all of these fancy features. Let me go ahead and very quickly, let me see what else we got here on the chat. Third Eye View says, I have the Freewell Day filters for the Anafi and barely use them. I cannot control the white balance with these. Huh. Yeah, I heard things like that. I heard things like that happening. In fact, some of the Chinese really cheap filters are made out of polycarbonate, not optical glass. And even good ones tend to, and even with filters for the Mavic Pro, for example, it'll change the color balance the moment you put them on. And of course, they should be completely neutral. Neutrality is what you're shooting for. And so, again, we're going to try them out and see what happens. It's only about a $49 investment. So I think I'll be able to take a chance and see what happens. The only other thing that I've heard is that when you add a filter, and it depends, yeah, especially the cheap ones that you buy for like $20 for 6 filters, garbage. You pop them on and the gimbal calibration will not be able to be performed. Maybe they're too heavy, maybe it's just something about them. It does not allow it to happen. So far, Freewell seems to work, but we'll see. Maybe, one thing that you could do, if you must use the neutral density filters, put it on, start the drone, begin your recording manually, because you're still not moving, not flying, and get a control white card or a gray card and put it in front, get a nice view of it under the same general lighting conditions that you will be shooting under. This is what photographers do as well for still photography. This will give you a reference that you can then use for color correction in your editing application. You can just use the eyedropper, click on that gray, perfectly gray neutral card, and especially with the 18% card, it'll allow you to get that perfect in-between exposure setting as well. But if you just want to do the white light setting, then use the other side is white. Again, expose that through your video. Take a shot of that through your video before you take off. And then use that, eyedropper tool in Premiere or Vegas or whatever you use for your, video editing. And you will be able to color correct that. Okay, at least get the correct neutral white point. And, with the 18%, you get not only the white point correct, but also your exposure. It'll give you a middle exposure. And then you may have to shift your midpoint a little bit this way or that way. Make sure that your shadows are just above black. If you use a scope in something advanced like Premiere uses, then you can actually adjust your shadows so they're just above black and your highlights just below white, below pure white. That would be 000 value or 255 triple. And that would be your maximums. You want to be inside that region to be able to not get any clipping of any of your tones. And of course, then the middle tones can be moved any way you want, because that will not affect your white point and your black point that you locked in when you perform that operation. And that's what we do for photography. Let's see, something else here. Have you looked into having, oh, wait a minute. Third Eye View says, most of my landings are from 2 to 3 feet with return to home. Then I cancel and take control of and land. Yeah, I heard that this drone with return to home doesn't actually land, correct? It just kind of hovers there. And then you have to kind of take over and land it. There's a message held for review. We're going to show it anyway. Third Eye View says, I lost my 110 subscribers because I changed my name from Rob's Photography to the Third Eye View. Oh, so you're Rob's Photography. Okay. What happened? Why? That is weird. Jeez. Okay, Cliff Medina is here. He's a drone enthusiast as well. Third Eye View or Rob's Photography. So when you land and tilt in hand, the software reports it as a crash. So I land on the ground. Yeah, I think that's with the Bebop 1 and Bebop 2. I'm going to do one and just to see if it actually does report it as a crash. It might. But again, that's not something I'm going to be doing all the time. This thing lands so gently. If you are an owner of a Bebop 2, you know how that thing comes down. It literally drops. This thing lands a lot gentler. Not as gentle as a DJI drone, but gentle by comparison. Third Eye View says, yes, it hovers. And yes, it hovers when returned to home. Yeah. So, yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I don't know, in most cases, I wouldn't want it to land possibly. I don't know why they do that, why they don't just let it land. DJI drones land right on the pad it took off from. Although I saw a video where someone was having problems with a Mavic 2 coming back and landing on the pad. And, you know, why would you want to land on that pad? Well, maybe surrounding that pad is something you don't want to have your drone touch, possibly, especially, you know, when you have these sensors underneath, optical flow and you know, camera sensors and all of that. So it turned out to be that, I guess, when it takes off, you have to wait for the drone to lock on to the point it took off from, you know. And I think it can do that photographically speaking through imaging, literally, as well as GPS coordinates, possibly. Again, I'm not an expert on those aspects. So when you when you return to home, then it's going to go back and sort of review that original takeoff point. And I know some drones like the Xeno and the Fimi literally look at the landing pad and either create a little selection circle around it because it finds it and then it will attempt to drop on it. But so far, every video I've seen, it loses the lock on the pad and ends up landing, you know, 3 to 4 feet away from it. Which again, to me, it doesn't really bother me that much. As long as it comes home where I can see it, let's just say that's sufficient for me. But I think this will do a little bit better job. And I'm going to try that the next time we go over to Nathan. Probably not tomorrow. It depends. The grass will be soaking wet tomorrow morning. So I'm not going to do that with this new baby right here. So let's go ahead and look what we have here. I'm going to share with you guys just a few little vids or portions of videos here. Okay, so this is going to be Bebop 2. And let me see if this is the one that I did originally. Okay, so let me go ahead and open this up. And I'm going to pause it. All right, let's go. So this is the Bebop 2 flying. And of course, this is just 1080p video. All right, so what I wanted to touch on is that when you go from straight to even a very gradual yaw, because when you're flying straight, the optical stabilized quote-unquote gimbal is literally locking onto the whatever it sees within that image, okay? And so when you start to shift away from that angle, it kind of begins to yaw, visually begins to yaw a little bit more abrupt, even though you did not, okay? Even though you're yawing about as, you know, even if you set it to the minimum yaw, it's still going to give you that little abrupt jump from straight flying to yawing. And when you stop yawing, it'll go from a slightly turning to straight. And then there's no gradual drop, if you will. That doesn't happen with the Anafi. See that? I'll point it out the next time I see it again. So this is just qualities of it. Now it didn't happen this time. Let me lower this volume on the weird music that I used. I originally had some music that I generated with a music generating program. I got a copyright strike, which is crazy because I generated the music myself. So you see, as I was yawing to the right, and I decided to then gradually go straight, it just went from a yaw to straight. There it goes again. And let me tell you folks, I'm yawing as smoothly as I can possibly do it. Now that wasn't too bad there. So this is the property of, I got a little jello. Did you see that? Yeah, a little bit of jello. I was flying pretty fast at that point, and the optical stabilization just can't handle it. This is the, there's like probably 100 acres worth of woods back here. And then you guys saw the property below that. This is Grandma's old house. This is where Grandma used to live, the mother and parents of the grandmother of Nathan, the other side of the family. So this is their home. My daughter, husband and son and Nathan live in this side of the house. And then the in-laws live over here in this side. This is their garage. Anyway, so this is the first time I actually took it over their structure. And I just wanted to test my Bebop 2, the very one that I just showed you earlier, to see how well it performed. And I set the altitude to no more than, I think it was no more than 50 meters high, and the distance of about 100 meters away. So I didn't want to I wanted to be geofenced within this region here, because that road is a major road, and I don't want to be even caught dead flying over that. So I think this performed really well. You see how it kind of abruptly stops yawing and goes forward. That is part of this optical stabilization system. It's kind of doing that for our own good, if you will. So all right, so let me fast forward now. We're going to come around down, look at me, and we're going to go around for a little walk around the house, around the property. So to me, this is a good exercise because, as they say, altitude is your friend. So the higher you are, the less likely you are going to hit something, the less likely you have to be careful about your surroundings. Like that little twig that I just flew over. And there's a wire right here in front. So flying at this low of an altitude and just kind of taking the drone for a walk, for me anyway, is a good exercise in control. And the Bebop 2 just does a marvelous job. I wasn't about to fly between those branches. I don't think I could fit it in there anyway. So this is Nathan's little monkey bars. We have a fire pit there, and their property goes about another 50 yards into those woods. All right. So I think we're gonna take a walk here by what they call the no-mow zone, where they don't mow, they leave it wild. Here's me. I think I'm going to go ahead and take off over the house here. Again, there's no one home. My wife is watching TV inside. They were up in vacation in New York State. And so that was my big chance to fly without any kind of interruptions. And I simply wanted to know, what can I do with this Bebop? So there I go, playing with the gimbal. I did practice a little bit while I was doing this flight. And I burned about battery and a half, so I ended up with about almost 37 minutes of video that I then, just cut. But this has been pretty much a lot of long flights without any kind of a cut or interruption. You see how the yaw just kind of, it moves and then stops and then moves and then stops? It's all part of that gimbal. So, and I think we're going to come in for a landing pretty soon here. I always like to rotate the drone away from me when I land. There's the shadow. And we go down and take a landing. And that is it. All right. So as you saw, very stable, very nice. Again, it's just a pleasure to fly. These bebops are awesome. Even the Bebop 1 is really good. It just has its limitations. It's got that unshielded GPS module, which is, I guess that's just part of the original early design. And I suppose you could fly without GPS, but it just makes it a little bit difficult. Although even though it's not getting, before, now all three of them are working okay. The Bebop 1 gets very, very hot. Okay. In fact, it has warning, hot, don't touch. Yeah. So I can just see all of this heat generation, especially if it's like 90 degrees outside. You're gonna just double that heat production, and it's going to cause problems. I don't know whether that has anything to do with GPS acquisition or not, but even without GPS, where the indicator is red, I can take it off and it will just sit there and just hover. It might move slightly, but it will not be flying all over the place like a true non-GPS drone would do. Say a drone with just altitude hold. Okay, let's go ahead and look at one, and then we'll say goodnight. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Hang on a second. I'll show you what I mean. I happen to have, this will be kind of a preview for you guys. Bebop 1. Bebop 1 with a fixed GPS module. And this is when I finally got it to show green. So now I've fixed all three of them. I mean, I can't complain. This is my backyard. By the way, for those of you who may not know, that was indeed a toilet with a plastic skeleton on it. Again, these little drones are just a total pleasure to fly. The Bebop 1 can be found for like $90 now. The only thing you need to do is buy either a fly pad, which is a controller, maybe for like $30, and you got a complete system. They come with a brand new Jiffy battery, which is better than the original Parrot battery. You will need a balance charger for those types of batteries because I don't have the electronic board with inside the balancing board, so you need to get a balance charger. You cannot use the original Bebop charger on a third-party battery. By the way, I did ask permission of my neighbor to be able to shoot and show some of her beautiful backyard, which is a lot better than mine. That chair right there by the pine trees where I usually sit and do an outdoor video. When the weather is nice, I'll do a print-related video by the tree. Let me turn this down. There I am in the shade. It was a little bit hot that day. I think I'm going to have it do a fly over me. I'll back it up a little bit. And again, just notice how easily to control and how stable this little Bebop is. And that's the old, the junky, if you will, Bebop 1. Or 3.0 as it was known. And you can get parts for it, you can get motors, you can get everything you need for it. So there's no need to worry about it becoming obsolete. The only thing you need to worry about is batteries, and third-party providers have that fully covered. So no problem at all. So I put this through its paces in my little yard, and it passed. It passed with flying colors. Now watch it drop. Boom. You see what I mean? So that's the way those drones drop. Now we're going to quick take a look at the new Anafi, and this is my first attempt at doing anything with it. Let me see if this is it. Yeah. So I have my camera settings on auto, and I post-processed it in Adobe Premiere because I use a very flat profile, so it gives me an almost no color at all. Look at that thing just standing there, just standing about 1.5 meters above the ground, not moving. Look at the wind. Notice how the yaw just started evenly without any kind of jump. Now, the only thing about having your camera set to auto is that it's going to cause, and I got the motion blur going here. It's just not, it's going to cause your exposure to just change as the lighting conditions, of course, change. I mean, I noticed the sharpness right here, the wire grill of the little wood burner, just really crisp. This may not be coming across as I see it on this broadcast because this is not 4K streaming, of course. So you're going to see it in its degraded form. But I just wanted you to experience with me the smoothness of the different, turns. And now we're going to go up a little bit. We're going to show a little bit of the neighborhood above us. Here we go. Notice the way that just started to very gently move. And look at this, is about 1 meter per second. And I'm not even going that fast. I think I even went at half that rate. And then I began to, I set my gimbal travel to minimum travel. So even if I press the lever all the way down, it's going to cause that camera to tilt at a very, very slow rate, which is great for those reveal shots. Well, see what's happening here with my highlights. They're just totally blown. So that's what I need to play with. Get those exposures set correctly. But again, this was just my very first flight, taking it up for a spin. This is very, very sharp. I can almost see the stripes on that little hammock over there. You can see every little branch, every little leaf. Again, as I said, you're not going to see this because you're viewing this at streaming resolution, which is, terrible by comparison. Every wire is there. Wow. When I do upload this tomorrow, I will set it for the highest, whatever the highest resolution that YouTube can handle. And hopefully you'll be able to then, enjoy this a little bit better than you can on the live stream. But I just want to, again, all I'm showing you is the maneuverability of the drone. And again, I am not a drone racer. I'm not going to take this thing out and start, running figure eights between trees and things like that. No, that's not me. That's not what I do. I'm going to go down a little bit. Notice the exposure change here. When it got to this dark area here, it immediately changed the exposure to a brighter setting. And of course, that's what happens when you have it set on auto. Notice how the roof of this dwelling here was almost blown out, and now it's becoming blown out because it's being exposed to this darker area here. So this is why you need to lock your exposure So you set it with your, your 18% card, and then you lock it. And that way it will not shift on you when you're going from darker areas to brighter areas and so on. So I think I'm going to bring the gimbal up a little bit now. And this is something that I could not really do very well with the Bebop. I couldn't yaw and then raise the gimbal slowly. I think the optical system would get confused. The sun is right there, so you see this, blown out white sky here. So by getting a little closer, I block out some of that sky, and it causes an exposure adjustment to take place. And we'll bring it down. So at this point, this was my very, very first landing. I thought, okay, what's going to happen? Here we go. Boom. Just like that. Just like that. I think I'm in love. Yes, absolutely. So you see, huge difference from that drop from like 2 feet. Boom. Literally, it just turns off power and drops. And so I don't see where that's, good for your drone. So it's amazing that Bebop owners have not experienced any kind of, problems due to just landing, those rough landings. Chris Tamulovich, Jose, just a suggestion for video editing. Look into the program called DaVinci Resolve. Yes, I certainly will. I know that program very well, and it's supposed to be amazing for this type of work. So anyway, I hope you guys had a bit of fun. It's been about just over an hour, so that's good. I can't believe that I actually held you guys here for that long. I hope you enjoy this. If you guys want to see more of this type of video, if you will, this will become a video in a day or so. And so you'll be able to replay it and watch it at your leisure. But I'm going to be shooting a lot of photographs. I got to go to some locations. We have a dam nearby here where they used to have I think they had a Boy Scout, Girl Scout campground as well. And I'm allowed to fly there. So that's something that I want to do maybe this fall when the foliage is majestically beautiful. And again, other places like that. There's a lot of little historic areas here in the state of Maryland. But again, you got to be careful where you can fly and where you cannot, because I don't want to get in trouble. So that is it for now. And for this little baby right here, one heck of a flyer, I'm telling you. So far, even the little minimal amount of flying that I did with it, I'm just blown away by it. Of course, I have been told that I would be blown away if I just buy a DJI product. But you know what? $550, $540 is what I pay for that. I don't think I can get anything from DJI that's going to be, at that price range. So again, someday I will. Someday I will probably have a Phantom, whatever they have at that point. And so if I'm going to go that route, I'm not going to just go for the mid-range. I'm going to go for the more, not a Inspire, no, but maybe, just a Phantom in the most modern version they may have when I'm ready. Again, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of traveling where I can take these babies with me. The Typhoon Q500s are wonderful, super stable, and the video quality is ridiculous, and the stability is ridiculous as well. And I think you could do, 4K in 2 different forms. One of them will be cropped, will have more horizontal resolution than the regular 16:9 4K. But again, it's a humongous bird, and it requires a big old suitcase to take anywhere you want to go flying. So something like this, again, once I get that little case, you just slap this in it, slap that in it. Watch what happens when you close it. And it fits in that little Parisian carrying case like it's fashionable. Okay, that's how big it is. And yet, most of the time that you see something this small, it's usually not as stable. And so this gives you the stability that you would expect from a bigger, heavier bird. And again, I love the fact that you will never see those propellers get in the way. One of the suggestions for certain types of drone-y type shots is that if you want to do, say, you got a group of people or you got an object that you want to come from far and then fly down toward it and then fly away from it, okay? Because you're flying at a relatively high rate of speed, you will end up with something else, not this. You will end up flying about this angle, okay? And guess what? The camera will be maybe tilted down or maybe horizontal, who knows? You will be going at a relatively high angle, inclination, and these will get in the way. But these are so far out of the way from the front element of the lens that it's just impossible for that to happen. So what they recommend with a drone that gives you that problem is to reverse shoot it, okay? Start from the opposite direction and fly back, okay? And then play it back forward. Supposedly that fixes the problem. I'm not sure. Anyway, so I won't have to worry about that with this. So anyway, I can't wait. Can't wait to get into this a little bit more in depth. And of course, I'll be sharing all of this with you guys. So let me put it back in its little case. And it goes this way. This is a little cradle right here for the bottom of the gimbal. Boom. And boom. Make sure your propellers are aimed toward the center. Zip it up. And I tell you, some people wear big baggy pants. I bet you they can stick this in their front pocket. Okay. Maybe not. But anyway, once I get the little carrying case, I'll go ahead and share that with you guys as well as the filters. We'll test to see if I can actually do white calibration with those filters in place. And then we'll go from there and then start explore the capabilities of that parrot Anafi, as they call it in France, or the Anafi, as we call it in the Western world. All right, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. Yes, subscribe to my printing channel. Within that channel, I will be doing a lot more drone photography and also content. So again, kind of a hybrid of the two worlds. But again, both of them have to do with photography and ultimately production of prints, which is what I'm all about. Thank you so much. See you the next time. Bye-bye.